councils as well as FRC board on what were some of the benefits and some of the accomplishments, some of the learnings that we've had over the last year in terms of working together as a region and what would be some of the determinants of success of that. So you'd be asked some questions, ultimately is the goal. We put it together. You'll have a chance to review it in March. And that's the goal. I believe she'll have the first contact with you over the coming weeks. If that does not work for you, we will push this further back. I understand you're all very, very busy, so we want to accommodate your schedule as best as possible. Eventually, this could also be used as content that we could use for public interaction as well. Right now, it's primarily considered more of an orientation tool, an internal tool that we'll use, but it could be also seen as an external facing in terms of explaining the FRSC. And for us, the face of the FRSC ultimately is the board, the mayors of the organization. Certainly, I play a role in that, but ultimately leadership and vision of how we've been successful, which I believe has really come from this board. So please know that that's happening. In terms of transportation, I do want to bring updates to you on a monthly basis now on our regional transportation work. We are looking to launch a regional transit system, which is new. It will be a lot of work. It will be a new thing for everybody. It will be adaptability. We want to make sure that we bring these updates to you regularly. One of the things we've done in the last month has been that we've gone to other communities across the province, other regions who have embarked in a regional-based initiative, both in Kent as well as Northwest Edmonton area. They've been quite successful at leading and in introducing regional-based transit. Most of it is on demand. It's not a routed system, and they're seeing a lot of use across those regions. So it's something that we're learning a lot about and how it could be integrated more successfully in what we would call more of an urban, suburban region than those communities. We're also likely going to be using a strategic advice from a talented staff person at the Northwest Regional Service Commission who has expertise in this particular area. They brought in from Montreal, who has led transit development in the past. Ultimately, the regional summit, which I'll speak to in a sec, we got a lot of great feedback. As you know, it was a major focus in getting that feedback from each one of the communities on what were the goals, what are the challenges, the worries that we have, and that's going to be critical in our ability to proceed to pursue this project. We're still waiting on finalization of RDC funding for the provincial or for the regional pilot, but we expect that is coming imminently. Next update that I have is on the regional summit. We were really energized by the regional summit. Staff that participated, energy was high throughout the day. The new timing, I would say, seems like it was a little bit better than the previous timing. We will take some more feedback on that, of course. We had about 70 attendees. One of the things we noticed is that there was more councillor participation than it was the year before, which is great. Our staff actually speak quite regularly as we debrief. That one of the things that was maybe the most exciting part was when there was a van of Hampton representatives all showed up at once. It did show that. We also noted that the communities were interacting. This is a matured group, right? They've known each other for a while, so there's a lot of relationships already been developed, and you can see that in how that event went. We were $10,000 below budget on this summit versus the last one as well, so we're getting a little bit better and more efficient at hosting it.
I'd like to mention that Jim's council didn't show up. They went from St. Andrews.
I never had one council show up either.
Oh gosh, I can't believe I said that.
I just don't know how much weight I lost when I saw that in your notes that you had a joke.
A joke. I had jokes. He went, "You're gonna tell a joke?" I said, "I think so."
I don't know.
Yeah,
that was heartburn. Heartburn.
You see Richard.
Yeah. The consent agenda is quite large today. You'll see that part of the objective of this meeting is really just to cover all our actions for the year, how we're doing. Want to give you that year-end update. There's a couple of them that require actions. So certainly if there's items within the consent agenda that you want to discuss, it can always be pulled out. It's not a big deal. We place things in consent because we figured it's there, but happy to discuss them separately. So just want to make sure everybody's aware of that. It's not meant to stifle discussion if there's something there that you'd like to discuss. The last part of my update is that I really wanted to take the opportunity to thank the FRSC staff for the amount of work. I think you'll see in this package the amount of work and commitment that the staff have taken over the year, but especially in the last couple months and kind of finalizing the projects that they felt. We have a tremendous team here, especially after the summit. It's a full team effort. So I wanted to thank each of them individually for the tremendous work that you've taken on this year and for the impact that you're having regionally. And I'd also extend that to this board for the amount of work that you've done yourself, the commitment and the balance that you have as both mayors and deputy mayors for your communities, and pretty comprehensive expectations here at the FRSC. Your leadership is not unnoticed, so thank you very much for that as well.
It's good. So the consent item, would someone like to make a motion to receive and file unless they have questions on any of them or comments?
But actually, Mr. Chair, there's some approvals in the consent item. There are a couple of approvals. Yes, there are.
What we do in consent, we place it in. If you feel like you'd like to discuss them separately, it's not uncommon for us to have approvals within consent. I do believe, Deputy Mayor Mackenzie, if you correct me if I'm wrong, I believe you've approved a capital budget through consent in the past. So it's not uncommon to have approvals in there. Some of them are updates, some of them are not. So when you move it, you're moving every resolution as part of that. So I just want to make sure.
We often would have somebody say, I have a question or a comment about something, and we could either deal with it right now or put it at the end of the agenda to talk, pull it. But generally, I would move the consent agenda from 4.1 to 4.6, get a seconder, and then if somebody wants to discuss it or pull it, that would be the time.
All right, moved by John, second by Brittany. Question on this motion?
One question, I do have a question. With the surplus,
Yeah.
there was a fairly large surplus. And, I know that 800,000 is going to the building. That's a huge, surplus. And that's also very large, amount of money that's going for that building. And I guess after looking at that, I'm wondering why we didn't just reduce the budget and have that come out at a later time. Like, it's a very large surplus.
So the question you have is whether ultimately it was budgeted in the 2025 budget. In 2024, we approved it. Upon review of the cost, because the standards of energy efficiency changed during the year, that's what our design specifications missed because we had to uphold it, and that's where the additional cost came. The projected surplus that we've achieved through the landfill this year allows us to cover those costs, the additional costs that will be rendered through these additional design specifications. And what we're proposing in the year-end resolution is basically on the projected surplus of the landfill, because we're not going to be spending that money. It's just to reserve it for the following year in order for us to complete the project in Q1 or Q2 of 2026. Is that clarified, or maybe I'm missing the question?
Well, I guess the question is, why didn't we have that surplus added to our budget, subtracted from the budget, and reduce our budget for 2025 in that amount, or for 2026 to that amount?
I think the first, I'll have Mark or Ashley respond to this further, but Ultimately, budget, it's a timing issue as well. Budget was first developed in, July, August 2025, this year. So when we submit the budget, we still thought we were going to complete the maintenance of the maintenance building at that time. That was gonna be the expenditure as expected. As of probably a month ago, we still thought that. We were still expecting that the project, because it was all gonna come through by that time. Only recently, we discovered that it's selected not going to happen by year end. So this is where this particular matter of reserving the fund in order for the project to be completed next year can come into play. But your question about if we were projecting the surplus, why did we decrease the cost on
For the overall
on
budget.
landfill budget? Yeah. And perhaps Mark or Ashley might respond to that. I think this will still be, I guess, before they go, the expense is still going to happen, right? Like it's not a reduction. There'd be no known expectation of the surplus at the time of the development of the budget.
But now we have 1.6 million on top of the budget that we provided for the coming year.
So what's that? Maybe the question is, what are we using that money for?
Yeah, I
next
read
year?
all the
Yeah.
different allocations for that. But again, that's, like a building is a capital cost that we're using that money that wasn't earmarked for that, is my understanding.
Okay, maybe I'll step back and perhaps I can, the maintenance building is it was a capital expenditure paid for by long-term borrowing. And we're using some of the surplus projected in 2025 to actually rely less on that borrowing, if I'm also not mistaken. Well, why don't I pass it to Mark? Mark's here. I see him nodding his head. He's better at this than I am, so Mark.
Okay. Morning. Okay, I guess the simple explanation of all this is that for some unknown reason, we have about 800,000 in extra tipping fees this year. We have about 100,000, this is all projected to the end of the year, so we estimate based on the October statements, what's coming in for November 2nd. We think we have an extra 100,000 in construction and demolition waste for some reason. And plus we got little bonus money because the rainfall event in 2020, we're able to submit a claim into the province. So we're getting over 100,000, 150,000. What was it?
142.
Yeah, in when they got that. So we've got a lot of extra revenue coming in that when we did the budget, we didn't even know it was there. So what happens is basically we're on a cash budget, what is for funding. So when we figure our actual financial results at the end of the year, if we had this surplus, we could carry over into second previous year, or if we knew what it was, we could transfer it to the operating reserve fund and then have it as a budget item to come out in 2026. We didn't know what it was going to be. So the way it stands now, we're projecting that surplus to the end of the year. The 2026 budget is already done and approved. And the best use of that money in the future, since we already are committed to doing the building, we have a large enough balance that we can pay off most of this building and thereby reduce the future borrowing costs and debt payments and interest in future years. So, I mean, there is a choice. You could just say, we're going to transfer it to an operating reserve, borrow the full amount for the building, and there'll be debt payments in future years. I just think it's the best use of our funds to cut down on our debt burden.
So what is the, moving forward? You know, you didn't have these projections back in August when we were developing the budget. Moving forward, will you have enough information now to make some projections during budget time that are reliable so that we can consider those surpluses when we are doing the budget?
I don't believe so, because when the budget's prepared, we're into June, July, August, when it's finally pretty well approved to vote for comment. So at that point in time, we've only got 6 months worth of actual results. And a lot of expenses are incurred over the summer and into the fall. So I could estimate what it's going to be. And we could rely on it at that point in time, but the margin of error, plus or minus.
Okay, thank you, Mark.
Okay, thank you.
Good, all in favor?
I saw
Oh,
more questions.
Sorry,
The public safety regional risk assessment
Hmm.
that was done by Dylan, and I don't know if that this can be disclosed at this point or not, but I know I mentioned at one meeting that we have an EMO that we share with the town of Rossay. It's very efficient, it's very well versed, it's very, it's high scale. And I had said that if all of the fire departments got together from around our region and collaborated, that we probably would not have needed a study. So my question on that one would be, you know, if that study has been done, what was the cost of that? And again, I don't know if you can disclose that at this point in time or not.
Graham, you speak to it. I think you had a cost breakdown and where we're at with the project, so.
Yeah, certainly, I'd be happy to address that. The regional risk assessment was funded only in small part through our ongoing consulting budget for public safety. A lot of the funding for it came both through PEDAL at a provincial level, but also the Environmental Trust Fund, because the regional risk assessment is unique in that we've not only progressed through interviews with every member of the Public Safety Committee, as well as others such as Ambulance Brunswick and EMO, et cetera, but also has taken into consideration climactic risks as well. So it's meant to be a bit more comprehensive in that we're dealing with what if a road becomes impassable due to a spring flood or a high water incident along the coastal areas in Bunny St. Martin's, for example, while also looking at all the other response avenues within each of the different communities. I think that the level of detail contained within the report is a great value for what we're getting. I will say, as a progress update, what we presented is an update on the process. We are through all the interviews, the initial analysis of risk within the region. We are planning a workshop with the committee that, unfortunately, due to scheduling challenges to get everyone in the room, will probably be in January. That will look at sort of truthing or verifying all of these with the people that you mentioned, who have the expertise on the ground, and make sure that makes sense. But the level of detail in terms of identifying barriers, challenges, risks, and also the responses is within these bow tie analyses that have been drafted and sent to the committee for review at this point is quite incredible. There's hundreds and hundreds of data points in all of them, and new mapping being considered. And so on the budget question, the estimate from Dylan is about $78,000 for that study. And as I mentioned, I think only about 15 come from our operating, and the rest is through external sources that we pledge.
And just on that, we also have a very comprehensive climate change.
Mhm.
And I guess that would be a point that I'd like to make, I'll direct my question to the chair, my point to the chair, that when we do come up with some of these ideas for, for an assessment such as this, that perhaps we investigate, first of all, what each of the communities has in place at the time. And I know that Chief Boyle is part of the meetings that discuss these things, but I think we have to look a little harder at where can we use the talent that we have within every one of these communities without going to outside sources. Because I think we are missing the mark on that to a degree. But thank you, Graham, appreciate that.
And Mr. Chair, I'd just like to support that view. We have a fire department in the valley that is very strategic in its approach. Risk assessments have been done. To me, this is repetitive and almost duplication of service. So, and it's very expensive duplication, and it doesn't matter if it comes from Kettle or this organization, it's all taxpayer dollars. So, just like to support that opinion.
Good points, yeah, for sure. Any more comments or questions on? Okay, the motion's on the table. All in favor? Contrary minded? Motion carried. Takes care of consent items. Reports. We'll start with the letter to regional service review.
Okay. This was contemplated as a result of just discussions with the executive committee. And we had a good conversation with the RSC review consultants the day of all days, days of the summit. It was a busy day for all of us. And it was felt that it would be useful to kind of bring everything up that was heard during the conversation, as well as bring up others. And one of the things that the executive committee came to is that that conversation was primarily focused on the critical components, the needs for change. That message is there. One of the areas that was not necessarily covered as maybe substantially is what is going well? What are the things that we don't want change? What are the things that we're proud of? And it was felt that it might be important to kind of clarify those components in addition to the overwhelming need for change in the particular areas. So I think the easiest way to do this is to put a letter together summarizing the key feedback that was provided. This report highlights those. I can go through it very quickly. I know you're all very busy. I'm not going to read it word for word, but I'll maybe tackle maybe the big components. And if you hear something that is not there, we can certainly slot it in. I put it in written form within the report to give you an idea of what it would sound like and generate. So I'll go through it quick. Ultimately, the objective of the letter would be to strike a balance between the needs and limitations faced by local communities and the need for regional collaboration and defining what that need is and how we exercise it. We'd also clarify in the letter that it's not intended to replace any feedback that's coming in from any local government. That should be done in addition to whatever is shared in this letter. And then second, the rural district has not been engaged on this. A rural district wasn't part of our initial discussion. They didn't, and that they are a part of the identity of the Fundy region, and they should be consulted. Okay, so the single biggest impact that is identified was around the need for additional government funding to support the mandates that are being subject to the RSCs. Costs, it's identified the costs are significant and that ultimately costs are only going to increase if we're supposed to operationalize these mandates. That's what we're discovering in the work of the mandates. We can research and do gap analysis, but eventually we're going to have to engage, and that's going to cost money above and beyond just actually reviewing them. We also use language in the report around this regional collaboration is not only a benefit to local communities, it is ultimately a benefit to the province. The province asked for this, and if it's their request, they should certainly fund that request. And it is acknowledged that in the format that the mandates have been provided to the RSCs, it is a form of downloading that this board and RSCs across the province certainly feel without the funding that corresponds to it. So ultimately, the line is a more substantial and reliable funding partnership. We do bring up the regional facilities and that we're a very unique scenario outside of any other RC, which received no additional funding through the funding formula for that mandate. That costs us about $5 million annually for operating capital. We acknowledge that it is important that the province continue their pursuit of a practical and sustainable solution to that. I did bring up another point in this, or we brought up a point on this, which is around the timing that this takes from local government leaders. This is an important part that I've heard throughout the time that I've had with the RSC, and is acknowledged there that it's not just at the council or the mayoral level, but councillors and staff are also quite heavily expected. There are expectations placed on them. That paragraph also acknowledges that It doesn't give an answer of whether the mayor should or should not be engaged, but we do acknowledge that the mayors have an important role of setting the tone, of establishing regional collaboration and a framework for it. We also acknowledge what the language used is very ambitious, number of expectations through the community development mandate. There are many, and there's no, what's acknowledged is that all this funding is still just coming from one department. So it's surprising that while we have mental health and addictions, there's no money coming from health. There's no money coming from social development. There's no money for any of those others. It's all through environment, local government. So it's almost like the province hasn't really sold this effectively to the other departments if it's still only coming from the one department for the funding. So it's ultimately said that we are not pursuing all the initiatives within that mandate through the needs assessment, that we're not capable, we're not resourced to do it, and that a new form of partnership is required. We also acknowledge that there's a need for a provincial government standard for code of conducts that should be reviewed annually, that should be maintained for relevancy, and should preserve the collective values that are expected of all local governments and rural districts across. It is acknowledged that the rural district code of conduct is not up to par in terms of the standards established by other local government code of conducts due to the limitation of sanctions. We also acknowledge the rural district specifically, and this is a point that we've heard from the rural district as well as our members, which is that rural districts today are not really set up for success. They're not a form of government. They're not held to the same level of expectation, budget capacity, among others, and every community should be set for success, and they're really not set up for success at the current standard. So there's no solution established for this, but we're basically acknowledging that there's something wrong happening with the format of it. The letter ends with a list of, and this is obviously subjective, but I've done my best to try to capture what I think are the wins that we've had, that we've experienced, to acknowledge that it's not all critical, that there are changes that are needed, but there are also some things that would demonstrate the level of commitment and effort that has been established by our region. So we go through them. First regional strategic plan, we've stabilized the operating cost of the regional facilities, which was not the case in the past. Hosting the 2029 Canada Games, we're co-hosting it. I do see some format issues with this letter, so I apologize. I don't know, number 4, it says Rob K. Creative Mountain, so maybe that's just my copy, but it's a little off. $20 million of savings through the height augmentation project with the landfill. We've created these new regional forums, first of its kind regional transportation project, pilot project, first ever funded regional needs assessment, the effort of Envision St. John for growth readiness, visitor talent and business attraction, first of its kind approach for selecting executive and chairs to the FRSCs, our very unique annual regional summit, and then also just acknowledging the strength and innovation of our planning and building service as well. So listen, this is meant to kind of give you an overview. If you think there's some points missing there, happy to put them in. We're just trying to kind of wrap this review up from our standpoint from the commission.
All right.
Thanks, Phil. Great letter. Agree with all those points, but there was some significant discussion on the need for clarity of roles and scope of responsibilities. We talked a lot, I talked a lot, and I saw some nodding heads maybe, so maybe there was some agreement around the table of what property tax dollars are meant to be used for. And that much of the mandated services do not fall under that list. So I think it's very important that we add that.
Yep.
Agreed.
Nancy?
And to that point, and to extend it a bit, there was considerable discussion and I think unanimous agreement that we ask that health be removed from the social
Yeah.
mandate.
Absolutely.
So I think that needs to.
Very good. Debbie?
And on Mayor Grant's point, I was at an announcement about 3 weeks ago at the St. John Regional Hospital where Dr. Dornan was making an announcement on some of the wonderful initiatives. And one of the key things he said, and I think we have to remember this, is that health is health. He said you cannot separate mental health from physical health. He said health is health.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, what are we doing looking out after the drug addiction and mental health mandate? We have no business having that on our plate.
Yeah.
So that, and those were his words, health is health. And I think that should be repeated many, many times. And there was one other item.
Regional.
Phil, go back to 2023. And you and I had lunch with Daniel Lalane and his assistant. And when we talked about, and I'll say this for Brenda, when we talked about the mental or the social mandate aspect, and you and I both said, we are not equipped to deal with these things. And he said, all you have to do in your communities is collect the information, find out who is in need, how many are in need, get the data, and then it comes back to us. We have the people. I don't know if you remember this or not. We have the people to action and to put services into practice. And I think that's important too, that we hold the toes to those, to the fire of those who make these statements, to make sure that they are supporting all the work that we are doing in our region.
I think that ties nicely to, Director Merrifield's point of role clarity. And just to add, to make sure I get it, is ultimately the point is, on what Minister Dornan said is, if you put us in a little bit, we're all in. Like, you can't put us in a little bit in the health bucket, because as soon as you get into it, you have to deal with everything. So as soon as, if we just say, oh, you just have this little mental health issue over here, no. You're putting us in there, you're now expecting us to be part of, as he's saying, it's a broad responsibility. You can't.
I think that statement supports that
Yeah.
it should not be part
Should
of
not.
it.
Part of it. So our argument would be, it's a slippery slope. You're basically inviting us all in.
Well, we're putting ourselves at risk.
John?
All in or all in?
Thank you. Yeah, I totally agree with what Libby and Brittany are saying here. I mean, this is a clear example of, the Community Development Committee spending a lot of time and energy doing their assessment. And I didn't see anywhere in the assessment where there would be a particular facility in a particular spot that would take a particular number of 50 people, but anyway, I really think that we have to nail it down that, look, this is not our area of concern. You need to, and I think we could use that example, that nobody even knew that they were going to open that facility. And I'm not against it at all. I think that we need that sort of thing, but we're not considered partners. We're not brought into the conversation as to, okay, so you did this assessment. This is what we would like to do. Where do you think we should do it? So I mean, if they're going to own it, they should own the whole thing.
I think we should put that we weren't notified on that. That's a good example, John, in terms of driving the point that we're partners here.
I think you have to use their language.
Yeah.
To John's point, we are asked continually to collaborate and the importance of collaboration. And I think there should be some collaborating from the part of the government as well. Because when these important announcements come up and we get emails or we're questioned on, did you not hear about this? Well, no, we did not. So I think collaboration runs in every department, and that should be at the local government level as well.
So with that discussion and what Phil has, we need to have a motion on.
Yeah, I'll maybe read the motion. I've certainly taken some notes. Direct FRSC staff to submit a letter to Gung Dr. Christine Poulet summarizing the feedback from FRSC on needed improvements to valued characteristics of the Regional Service Commission, as outlined in the report, and integrating feedback received during December 4th, 2024, December 4th, 2025 board meeting.
I'll move that.
Moved by Brittany, second by Nancy. Question on this motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Carried. Thank you, Phil.
Thank you.
All right, Graham. You're up, sir.
I'll keep this,
Short and sweet.
short. Yeah, it'll be a short line, not a long time. Uh, deals with the, report from Dillon Consulting that was, followed the establishment of the rail working group around this time last year. This group, which contained representatives from regional communities, from, Envision St. John, the rail operators certainly invited into those discussions as well, to look at, what we were informed would be an upcoming review of New Brunswick's, short line, rail regulations. So we, contracted Dillon Consulting to do a review and interviews of short line rail, regulations across the country. A really valuable piece of work was, completed, which, looks at a number of identified legislative gaps, not only in New Brunswick, but how that compares to other jurisdictions. And just to sort of summarize, the big takeaway in many ways is that there's no solution necessarily that exists in another province for exactly how to handle, for example, nuisance complaints or blocked crossings, community impacts, quality of life due to short line rail. Something that is well regulated at a federal level, but no province has really implemented a solution to this at a provincial level. And the report outlines several recommendations that would allow New Brunswick to not only prepare itself and enable in many ways the economic growth that is anticipated, in particular here in the Fundy region due to the growth of Fort St. John, but also other industries by smoothing out some of those dispute resolution processes, cost sharing with local communities, et cetera, but to also address for the first time in a provincial regulation, quality of life concerns alongside safety concerns, which is obviously paramount to any rail regulation. So what we did was work with both committees that feed in, that the rail working group feeds into, so that's regional transportation and public safety, to develop, to not only review that report, but develop a letter to the Honorable Dr. Saul, Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure, that would outline many of these recommendations from the report, circulate the findings of the report themselves, and hopefully influence positively in terms of the feelings of both of those committees, future changes to the Short Line Rail Act. So what we presented here today is the current draft letter that has been developed with those committees internally, and of course review from Envision St. John as well. And we're looking for the board to support not only the receive and file of that report, but that we'll take this letter, then do a bit of our own shopping around to UMNB, to other municipalities who would be affected by short line rail regulations, all of which are predominantly in southwestern New Brunswick and in sort of the greater capital region, and to see if we can gain signatories, get some additional feedback before submitting the letter with the report to the Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure.
Question to Graham?
Yeah,
Brittany?
thank you, Graham.
Mhm.
I noticed who you had copied in on this letter.
Mhm.
But I think it should go to the entire St. John caucus as well. I
Sure.
think Kennedy, Dorman, Hickey, Wilcox, they should all be a part of that.
I agree. I think if you look at it, we have a little highlighted CC that says applicable MLAs because we left it open. They will revise this before it goes out too, and we will probably also include, if desired from those other municipalities, their MLAs as well. You know, we talked to Fredericton Junction, and they have an interest in circulating to that their MLA. We would also include those at that time. So,
Thank you. Any more comments or questions?
Just that I fully support, this letter, and, I think the report is excellent work. We're constantly impacted, unfortunately, usually negatively by, you know, having rail run through the town. Blocked crossings have happened frequently. You know, we're always working with the operator to improve communications there, but, you know, it's spotty from their end. Sometimes I find out that's a crossing is blocked through social media before my emergency services are aware. Things of that nature. I'm very excited about the rail improvement fund, the potential development of a cost sharing mechanism for rail infrastructure. So I just wanted to express my support for the work that's been done. So thank you.
Great. Nancy?
And yes, I agree. It's good work. It does raise a question in my mind again about consultants, because we seem to use a lot of consultants. And there's one name that comes up more than the other. So I'm just wondering, I think I've asked this question before, but do we use, what process do we use for selection of consultants? Do we put out an RFP for consultants?
It's a good question. We do not have, and at the local level, you'll have more detailed, procurement expectations. What we've done, and it's to the benefit of our board, is that we basically follow the Procurement Act. So anything that is below, I think it's $134,000, we use our discretion. We will certainly over a threshold, we see various, bids. Over 134, we do a public process as is required by law, but all others, in order to prevent the volume of work coming to this board, we do it. If the board ever felt that we needed a policy to establish more detailed expectations for staff to proceed with contracts, we're certainly happy to do that. In our community, in our region, we work quite successfully with consultants. We go to different ones. Some we do use more than others, so I'm not going to try to deny that that's the case, but we've developed a strong relationship with them. And on higher ones, we'd seek additional. So if there was ever a will to say, listen, past $75,000, we want it to get to the board. That's fine. I know that some local governments do have those policies in place. At this stage, that has been discussed at the executive level over the past years, and it was not felt to be needed. It's more of a traditional board relationship. But if we wanted to see that standard of local government at the commission, they're happy to do it. My advice would be that it could take on more work from our ends, and that we have internal controls to ensure that it's the case. So that's how I'd respond to that.
Any comments or questions? Right. Thank you, Graham. We have a resolution there. Somebody
Make a motion. This board received and file this report and direct the FRSC staff to circulate the draft letter and accompanying short line rail cross jurisdiction review to the New Brunswick Municipalities and Regional Service Commission for short line rail operations, as well as the Union of Municipalities of New Brunswick, for their feedback, endorsement, and signatures prior to submission to the Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure.
I'll second.
moved by Jim, second by Libby. Question on this motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion carried. Thanks, Graham. Okay, moving on. Social mandate evaluation. Brenda, come on down.
Hello. So last year we were in our action plan, we had an action to evaluate the social mandate. We hired the social mandate coordinator in February of 2024. When the mandate came to us from the province, as previously discussed, the three items that came under the social mandate were homelessness, poverty reduction, and mental health. But when we did our community development needs assessment and action plan, we found the most critical need is the homelessness file. And that's what we focused on. In fact, under the homelessness pillar of the action plan, we have three goals, and those goals are to support the implementation of St. John's Housing for All strategy. The second one is to address homelessness across region or member communities outside of St. John and develop a regional response. And then the third is basically looking forward, how do we get to a place where homelessness is rare, brief, and non-recurring. So under this, we've basically broken this in the report under a couple different headings. So what we've done, the success that we have found, our learnings, and then our next steps. So I'll briefly go through each of these. What we've done this year, a lot of research and background information went into it at first. When we first hired the coordinator, a lot of that was meeting with agencies, those working in the field, and with our local communities and reaching out across the area. One of the key pieces that we really learned was the not-for-profits and the importance that they hold. And so to understand, it's really difficult in the suburban and rural areas to get a picture of what's happening out there. And so we identified food banks as that kind of the canary in the coal mine, what the indicators are for homelessness, et cetera. And so went out and conducted interviews at all of the food banks around the region, and learned a lot. They were able to say, you know, some of them were aware of people sleeping in their cars, et cetera, or what their housing situation is. And so they really have that tap on what's happening in some of the communities. The toolkit, I have some hard copies with me today as well. So the toolkit, that was a big piece that was completed this year. It was something that was really asked for, and we started this toolkit for the businesses that were being impacted, and then it kept growing from there. So it's very nice. It is meant to be a living document, and our website is almost ready. We're in final draft stages for a page on our website where it will live and then continuously update. So what we hope with that is that it'll be linked to that other communities will use a link into our homelessness page where we can keep that live as well. And then, of course, the work in supporting St. John in their implementation. The coordinator was very involved with consultations around the green zones and working with specific projects and projects with the city that we thought would also may be of use across the region that she was involved in as well. So looking at the successes from this, the toolkit we've received incredible feedback and high praise on the toolkit. She did an amazing job, and a lot of work went into that. I think you'll find it very useful. There's lots of background information in there, and respond what to do if, basically, is the idea for some of those pages as well. The work with the city of St. John, I would say, was really crucial because it did a number of different things. It built the trust, established key relationships, and then just the learning as the city is learning with the implementation at the same time. So we are too, and then developed those learnings and now can share them out with the rest of the region and look at it in that way. So we really saw that as a big success. There's been some reaches out to other communities as well. So going around and visiting each of the communities and understanding some of the things that are happening. So the coordinator is helping out in St. Martin's with a group that wants to address some of the concerns in that region. We met with staff in Rossay and heard about some of the struggles with NIMBYism, and that's one of the learnings we think we could bring into communities to have some community conversations with, etc. We've met with Hampton senior staff and shared the resources and tools as well. And then in Grand Bay Westfield, we've had some direct requests as well. So we know that is kind of some learnings, and we are providing. So we are able to start providing those resources as well. And that key is, I think, is developing that resource. And we're not providing services. But helping find the resources and where you should point to, and giving that general guidance as well. So I think that is also one of the key pieces. We're not delivering a direct service or a direct it's service to the homelessness population. It's helping to find those resources, making sure social development who reaches out across the region as well and connecting in. And they contract to not-for-profits as well. So then again, it's that Erin would then reach out and say, this is the person from Fresh Start who should come up to Funny St. Martin's and help in this case. That those resources are there. They tend to be focused in St. John, but when these other areas are seeing issues, then we can point, we know who is there and what they can do for the other areas. And I think that's one of the key pieces. Again, the learnings, building trust, and that takes time and building those relationships, making sure we're connected with all the agencies across the area as well. Understanding our own role in here, again, I would point back to, it's the finding the resources where you can go and understanding this complex situation in here. And I've already mentioned about the importance of the not-for-profits and the work that they're doing and understanding what they can do and some of the indicators they can provide as well. So moving forward, we're going to continue to connect with member communities to understand what you need and how we can be of resource to you as well. We will really start pushing the homelessness toolkit and build the awareness of it and how it can be used. We have set up, Grand Bay has asked for some training, and we think that might be, it's basically what homelessness might look like in the outside regions and having those conversations. So we're setting that up for in January. I believe that's when that's scheduled. And we can do that for other communities as well if there is interest. And then, of course, one of the projects as well is Erin's involved in looking at mobilization within the city of St. John. That's one of the pieces that she's looking at. So at the same time, we can look at how do you mobilize if there were incidents in the outside regions as well. So looking again at mobilization of services. And then the whole funding piece, we do have funding through that we for 2026, but we will continue to work with social development and local government about how we continue to fund this work.
Very good. Thank you for that, Brenda. Any comments or questions? We'll start with Libby here. Sorry, she had her hand.
Yeah, I really like the fact that you have all of the very important groups that are in touch with either the homeless or whatever falls under the social mandate. But and maybe this is too much on your plate, but I think it would be very valuable to go and speak to each of the communities. Certainly we'll extend an invitation, but if that's something that you wanted to do or that you had the capacity to do at council, I think that would be very, very, very valuable. And because, when we look at the issues, something like NIMBYism exists in every single one of our communities. And it's something we have no control over. It's what our neighbors within our community are thinking or saying. And I think that having your presentation on the toolkit, what you have accomplished, and how we're going to move forward is we can't solve the problem, but we can work with what's happening in our communities. And we have the resources to go to in order to help these people, regardless of who they are, whether they're the residents or whether they're people that are coming in to live, without a roof over their heads. But I do think it's important. Thank you for the work on that.
Absolutely. And we would love to come up. I think that is a resource that we can all.
I think that's good.
Absolutely.
Brenda.
Thanks for that, Brenda, and all this great work. I just wanted to make the comment related to the training for municipalities with respect to NIMBYism. I was in a symposium with New Brunswick Housing Corporation and ELG about a year and a half, maybe even 2 years ago now. And they at that point had been doing some work to develop training for municipalities in this regard. So before we start from scratch and hire another consultant, I'd reach out I'm pretty sure it was ELG that had it, but it was a while ago, so I can't specifically remember.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We will explore that. Absolutely.
Nancy?
So of course, I'm going to ask this. I'm wondering why Rothsay has been singled out on.
It was
we,
just a
excuse me,
Oh, sorry.
if we believe that there's no NIMBYism in any other community, I will not believe that, and we just heard that. And we do have our own planning department. We have in the past few months approved 2 major developments in the face of NIMBYism. We get pushback, we deal with that, right?
Yeah.
And now we have engaged an expert to develop training. So since we have been singled out, I wonder, did we ask for that? Because I know the answer is no, because I've talked to our planner. And so I think we are just running a risk of entering into the planning and development departments of municipalities that have them. And to Brittany's point, it is my understanding that the planning branch in the province has already prepared materials for this, for the use of municipalities. So again, taxpayer dollars to develop an expert, to bring an expert when perhaps that information is already available. And I think we should avoid singling out municipalities. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I don't think it was more, it was a comment that we heard when we met with this.
I'm sure you heard it everywhere, actually.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure as well. It was something that I guess we engaged in a little more with that conversation. Certainly wasn't the intent to single out that, but that was basically one of the requests that we heard to speak about. And from when we met with the CAO at that time, but certainly will.
Yep, thank you. Any more comments or questions? Other than that, we'll entertain a motion to receive and file.
Second.
Moved by Brittany, second by Nancy. All in favor? Contrary minded? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Brenda. Okay, year-end progress. Phil.
Okay, we're still chugging. This is like a super report. It has a lot, it packs a lot of punch. It's basically like an update of where we're at with our work plan. Want to make sure you're aware of where we're at. It's not meant to be a year-end update, but there are primarily updates, but there's some actions originating from this. So it's sort of like a consent agenda item because I kind of packed so much into it, or we packed so much into it. I will go through the Coles notes to give you context to the resolutions and maybe some of the items that are of the most significance. The report identifies 2 letters to be sent, one to Minister Hickey and the other one to Minister Gauvin. These are related to action items outlined in our 2025 FRSC work plan. Both of these are essentially informed from the year's work of the departments, the committees that support those mandates. And both of these have been circulated to the committees for an opportunity for feedback. We wanted to make sure that we pursue this. There has been engagement already on these topics, but we felt like just to make sure that there is an official on paper or something that was identified that's important. For example, we've met with Minister Mile, which would have covered some of the housing issues. We all met with Minister Gauvin during his roundtable discussion here in the region, but we still felt like it was important that we clarify and outline some of the key priorities that we're aware of. As you're also aware, we received 2-year funding from Tourism, Heritage and Culture for a regional recreational activity and or action plan. And that funding is to support basically a roundtable on physical activity. and that is financed entirely from the province. And the report has the terms of reference for that committee tied to it, just to make sure that there's awareness of what's happening there and to approve those terms of reference. The report also includes a draft regional climate action plan that consolidates the over 60 existing municipal, rural, and provincial climate plans into one coordinating register and plan. The regional plan is not meant to duplicate or duplicate at all, or to make things redundant. The plan is to organize local plans through a lens of shared regional priorities, identifying where there's gaps and there's synergies, and ultimately an idea of how it's executed. That's where we've heard the most challenges, that there's all these great plans, but there's limited ability to access funding in its execution and implementation. So the vision here is to put this together, demonstrate to the province and the federal government that this region is essentially united in its effort, and that these particular priorities where they yield the largest amount of synergies have an opportunity of accessing more funding than if each local government did it by themselves, is the vision. The last one that I wanted to update you on is landfill gas utilization study. This was completed this year. The existing flows, well, as you know, the generator's come to its end of life. So we're really deciding what happens next here. So the existing flows are too low right now to justify further investment in replacing or to introduce new technology for landfill gas utilization. FRSC will focus on alternative landfill gas capture over the coming years to improve flow. Probably in the next 2 years, while evaluating the impact of these small initiatives to see if we can generate a greater, more reliable flow. All we're relying on the flare for that landfill gas and to destroy those odors that are generated from the landfill gas. So there's 4 resolutions as part of this report. One is the receive and file, and then you see the 2 letters and then the terms of reference for the fiscal activity roundtable partner statement.
Move the recommendation.
Is that a move all 4, or is that move the first individually to receive and file?
I'm good with all 4.
All 4,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
Moved by John, second by Nancy. Question on this motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Carried. Thank you. Yeah. Envision St. John update. Andrew,
Been patient.
come on down.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everybody. Just a few updates for you this morning. Airport advocacy, we continue to do work with the St. John Airport in terms of trying to bolster up local support for the airport, as well as working with them to develop a business case to put before airlines to improve air service connectivity for the airport. I guess one highlight at this point in time is the recent announcement of the appointment of new CEO for the airport. And I think when you read his profile, an excellent profile for the job, and I think that will speak well to the type of direction that the airport will go going forward. So very pleased about that. The airport's got an initial meeting with Air Canada either today or tomorrow. I think it might be today. That's just to present a bit more sort of factual information about what's going on in the region, the level of activity that there is in terms of local businesses, and also construction activity and the like, that we think will highlight the need for the connections that we're advocating for. And then they're working with a consultant to put together the information that's needed to present a more fulsome business case to Air Canada that's expected to be presented in probably the February-March timeframe to bolster up the case for increased flights for the area. Through us too, we've engaged communication support for them to put together a bit of a newsletter and some other things that will go out to the community to really sort of highlight the importance of taking a good look at the airport for use of air services. So just we can bolster up that community support that helps in terms of the overall business case.
had a good meeting. The premier was in town, last week for breakfast with Chamber of Commerce, and, she came over to the office and, gave us about an hour of her time, afterwards, which was great, to have that opportunity. We used it as a means to, advocate for a number of, different, local, items of local interest and to make sure that, our plans were aligned with the provincial plans around economic development. And I think, that alignment is quite strong. Talked about housing, talked about the airport, talked about the need for accessible and affordable, power, which is, in terms of investment attraction is a big piece for us. We spoke to some of the investment attraction work that we're involved in right now. We talked quite a bit about the port, and the opportunities that are there right now in terms of gateway funding from the federal government, and that would include Sims Corner in terms of that discussion. So it was a good one to talk to about that. We talked a little bit about immigration and the need to try to put for some change to the immigration targets that I know that they're working on as well. So it was a good discussion back and forth. We continue to work with Housing New Brunswick as they are developing a submission to be made to the federal government under the Build Canada Housing Program. Our focus and interest is in terms of actions that will improve the affordable housing for the working poor. That it's a missing piece of the housing market. There's a number of different programs that are subsidized housing for people that are in various and different social circumstances that are required. But we've also got a layer of housing that is needed to really support people that are working but just unable to get into the housing market. So we're hoping that through the Build Canada Housing Fund that there may be an opportunity to address some of that. So we're working with them on that one. Investment attraction work. I guess the positive message that I can convey is investment attraction work is busy. I think at last count, I'm losing track because it changes by the day, but I think we're up to about 50 to 55 active files that we're working on. Now, not all of those, and I would say a high percentage of those won't pan out. But if we get 1%, 2% of those, they could make a big impact in terms of the local area. We've done some work over the last little while. We've had one site visit already. We've got another one coming up from companies that are looking at moving their operations somewhat out of the United States. So one that we're dealing with could be 200 to 300 jobs that could be coming this way. So we're working closely with Opportunities New Brunswick and some local players to try and make some of those. And that's an IT related company, so it would be a very good one to try and land for the area. So we're quite optimistic in terms of how some of those are going. On October 22nd, we held an immigration summit that was for frontline service providers in the immigration space. We had about 140 or so attendees at that summit. It was a great day, really well received by the people that came, because these are a lot of the people involved in the immigration space. Frontline don't get an opportunity to interact with each other. They're very buried in the day-to-day work that they do, and so I think everybody appreciated the chance to sort of meet some other people that are in the space, compare notes on different challenges and opportunities. So I expect, based on the feedback, that's going to be an annual thing that we do with that group on an ongoing basis. On the sales side of things, our sales team and in the conventions and meeting space side of things is very active. A lot of different proposals going in. Was pleased with the announcement recently on the 2027 Men's World Curling Championships. That was one that would not be happening if it weren't for the work of my team on that one. And I give them credit for that they worked very hard with both Curling Canada and some local people to make that come about. And so I think that'll be a great event. Plus, great event for the community, but it makes use of two regional facilities. And TD Station and Trade and Convention Center. So it'll be a good event for both of those facilities as well. You may remember during our budget submission, we asked for additional money so that we could go more aggressively into the Eastern United States market. We've actually we're in the final stages of completion on this. I think it's gonna come about. I hope it's gonna come about. We're actually, working with Destination Canada, with Tourism New Brunswick and Destination Canada, on a campaign that would be done with Expedia, that would see, our investment that, we're looking at about $150,000 that we would put into it. But it will then make us part of a $1.5 million campaign that's going into the Eastern United States that is New Brunswick focused and highlighting St. John, and Fredericton and Moncton, and each will have their own segments of space within that campaign. But we think that leveraging that is going to give us really good exposure in the Eastern United States for the 2026 year. And we'll track that to see if we get some good numbers coming from it, and then hopefully that'll be something that we can continue as a partnership going forward. Then finally, on the Canada Games, it's been busy. You probably, I think you got some indication of it in your packet for today's meeting. We've the initial group of directors, which was myself, Bill McMacken, Louis Legier, and Justin Robichaud from our lawyer, have been working on getting in place initial bylaws and policies for the Canada Games to make sure that we've got the right structures in place. And on Saturday, we've got the first meeting of the host society for the games. So there's 18 people on the that have now been designated for the host society board. I think we've got a great group in terms of cross section from both Moncton and Fredericton, or Moncton and St. John, plus a couple of people from general province, like Marion Limpert, that former Olympian, is going to be joining the host society. So it's a really good group of people. I think when you look at the names, people like Mary Keith that are getting involved will be terrific in terms of some of the background experience. So some really good players that are joining on that one. Under the agreement to undertake, it was required that we provide to the FRSC in Moncton our operating policies before the end of the year for review and approval. I'm not sure to what extent Phil and his team want to go through these. I can tell you from my standpoint, we've gone through these policies very carefully. They do provide the safeguards that I think are needed to ensure and minimize any risk of financial shortfalls for the games. And they've been reviewed and approved by our legal team. They've been reviewed by Canada Games Council to make sure that they're consistent with their requirements. And so I would be making a recommendation. I presented a draft motion that in accordance with the agreement to undertake that the FRSC approve the policies that have been put in place as for the 2029 Canada Games host society.
Very good. Thank you. Any comments? No, John?
No, I'll move it.
Moved by John, second by Nancy. This is to approve the policies
For the host society.
Okay. All, on the question? All in favor?
Hi.
Contrary minded? Motion carried. Thank you, Andrew.
Questions on any of the items?
Any
Happy to
questions? Yeah.
Address them, but.
I have one just quick one, maybe just to put in mind, it's not till 2027, but in these kind of massive events that are held, like the World Carbon Excellent Opportunity, a huge win for the region. It might be wise to think about what is the leadership of the FRC board in that. So like, well in advance, you'd say the expectations are, these are what we'd like to see the mayors participate in. I'm sure there will be, but it just might be something that you can try to tackle a little bit earlier and try to build that level of expectation for it, because it's really a regional based initiative. And I'm sure there'll be expectations placed on the members who are investing to vision to support it.
Expectations, like we put them in the opportunity category. It'll be a fun event to be part of, and absolutely there'll be opportunities for the region's mayors to be front and center.
So the question, just the bylaws and the policies from the Canada Games, and obviously they have them from years of basically repeat them or pick and choose? or-
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And look, I think we talked about this a little bit before, and having worked through this over the last, 4 to 6 weeks going through this, the Canada Games come to town with a complete package. We've been going through and making adaptations as needed, but it's a pretty well-oiled machine in terms of coming in. And so, yeah, we were able to draw on,
Awesome.
on past events and the packages that we provided through the Canada Games Council.
Great, thank you, Andrew. And
Andrew, I was, pardon me, asked to share with you as well that, with every opportunity, we know that Moncton is, I believe, the sole partner, whereas we are our region. And just, you know, when we say Envision St. John is hosting or doing this or that, the question was to make sure that the word region is in there because we are all contributing to it.
No, it's a great point, and I can tell you, specific to the Canada Games, that we are very conscious about making sure that it is pushed, that it's Moncton and the St. John region.
Yeah.
And so you'll see in terms of any agreements that come forward, any documentation,
Right.
any press releases that come out, all speak to Moncton and the St. John region.
that's a good point, Lynn. We're good? All in favor? Contrary minded? Carried. We have to go back to 6.1B. We need a receive and file on that, please. Thanks, Andrew. Receive and file. Is that John and seconder? Who, Nancy? I'm sorry, I didn't say that. All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Carried. Okay, committee agendas. Receive and file. So receive. Yeah, so receive and file for the committee agendas
So
as
moved.
presented. Brittany. Second by John. All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Carried.
John.
Oh, yeah, John.
Yeah.
Sorry, new business.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so, under the terms of reference for the regional facility committee, city's got 2 years to complete approved capital projects. So there are 2 projects, in 2023 that are not yet completed. One is the Carnage Building ventilation replacement of 200,000. It's underway, but, it's expected to be completed in February. And this was because of a supply chain problem. It took about a year or so to receive some equipment. And the second one is a trade and convention center lighting and swipe card lock replacement, and that's 30,000. This is partially completed and should be done by early 2026. And this is ongoing ever since the pandemic, trying to get labor, trying to get parts. And I brought this same resolution last year for project. And the resolution is that the Fundy Regional Service Commission grant a 1-year extension to the city of St. John to complete the project expectation of the previously approved 23 and 24 regional facilities capital budget. If I get a seconder?
I'll second.
Second by Brittany. Question on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion carried.
Thank
Carry
you.
on. All right, we're good? I think correspondence.
Yeah, the first one is.
Adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Seconder, please. Brittany.
We have gifts.
Oh,
Santa time.
Santa.